One of my biggest runs was like 10K to 800K in 3 weeks.
I knew I just had to survive. I was able to get a $3 million loan in like 3 minutes. God, I love this space. Fast forward a couple months, I closed out that position at 24 million profit.
Press button, money go up.
GM everybody, and welcome back to the Trading Floor, the thesis-driven show where we pick apart and challenge some of crypto's most experienced traders. I'm Finn Miller, and sitting across from me over in the US of A is Mr. Thomas Bahamas. Thomas, GM.
GM, Finn. We've got a good show today. I can't wait for this. So we got two different stories. We've got White Whale, who is an absolute legend in the space, joining us, as well as Fxnction. So Fxnction's been in crypto forever, right? Since 2017, started his shill nigh, lived through several completely different cycles, and continuously rebuilt himself around what the market is going to be doing. So today, I want to know, what's going on, how those life-changing trading runs happened. Are they still available today? And, see what's going on in the market and hear how they're thinking about the market.
Yes, precisely. I'm very excited to speak with White Whale, obviously one of crypto's most prolific traders, been around the game for a very, very long time and has had the results to prove it. Obviously, someone with a great experience and a great mind for analyzing the market and also for analyzing oneself. So very keen to hear how his take on trader psychology. Now, before we open up any charts, format is very simple. We discuss the trades in the market with each guest. They defend a thesis, they explain the execution, state their conviction, and tell us what would prove them wrong. Thomas and I then decide whether to take or pass said trade. And before we welcome our wonderful guests, there is a quick disclaimer. SolanaFloor is a subsidiary of the Jito network, and we may execute trades on this show through JTX, Jito's self-custodial trading platform. Views and trade theses expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and are presented for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing disclosed should be considered financial or investment advice, and our hosts and guests may hold assets discussed on the show. Full disclosures for the SolanaFloor team can be found on our website. Now, Thomas, before we get into all that, let's have a bit of a look around the market. Obviously, some great news coming out of the SEC yesterday. The market is loving it. Bitcoin is up. Solana is up back past $80. It feels like we're being rewarded for taking risk again. How are you feeling about this pump? Is it going to last? Is it just going to be a last little flash in the pan before some Q4 damage? What's your read here?
Man, I sure hope that this is sticking around, but it feels good. I wasn't even looking at the charts before we started, and right before we got on it, I took a look. Solana's over 80. Zcash is pumping. I think both of our portfolios might actually be in profit. I mean, this, it seems like there's some positivity out there. So I am thoroughly enjoying this, right? We got to enjoy the pumps.
We've got to enjoy the pumps indeed. Obviously, Bitcoin up, Sol up, even Zcash having a good run. Our portfolios must be looking pretty handy. Scroll over to your portfolio page there on JTX, Thomas, and tell me how you're looking. What's up at the moment?
All right. So if we take a look here. All right. 1 second. You're able to see that screen, right?
I am indeed.
All right. So if we take a look there, we can go over to our balances. We can actually probably go over to portfolio. We'll go to just trading floor wallet. And I'm seeing $1,011.36. So yeah, you know what? It does say cumulative P&L is still negative $1.37, but unrealized still plus $46. So we're in the green. We are in the green over here. Obviously, we just went over the Zcash price, and I think that's about 28% of my portfolio right now. So we're liking that pump there, up about $28 on Zcash. Jito's up, $10 here. I think we got in around 50 cents or maybe a little bit below that. And pump is on an insane run, right? I think we keep talking about pump, and the revenue keeps coming in. The meme coins keep generating revenue no matter what the coins are actually doing. So it's looking good. Our friend Tulip King came on and talked about Eli Lilly, and Eli Lilly's having a little run as well. So I mean, our portfolios are looking pretty good. I still am holding a little bit of bonk, which is not doing the best. But even that looks like it's kind of starting to catch a little bid there too. So yeah, I mean, things are looking good. Our portfolios, I'd say overall, looking pretty strong, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And also, well done, and thank you to Lucas Bruder and Narek from Hilo, who pitched us Zcash earlier on the show. It was Andy from Cyberfrogs who pitched us JTO, so another good return on that one there. And Tulip King with Eli Lilly. And finally, the other one I mentioned was that last week we had Yash come on and pitch Pump. Obviously, they're doing quite well as well. So a lot of experts coming on the show, sharing their theses and helping us to build a solid portfolio. Now, we have one of the most exciting guests we've ever had on the show. Obviously, White Whale, someone who needs very little introduction, moves a huge amount of size on chain. He's well loved by many of the decentralized protocols across Solana. He's going to tell us a bit more about not what to trade, but how to trade. Obviously, trading is a fun game with a lot of tickers and a lot of market bullishness, but we also need to learn how to manage ourselves, manage our expectations, and go through our own psychosis to make sure that we don't get wrecked out there in the markets. So, Thomas, shall we bring on Mr. White Whale?
Yes.
Welcome,
GM, guys.
Whale.
Oh, GM, Mr. White Whale, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Oh, doing good. It's a good day to get started and talk about the markets here.
Pleasure to be here.
Indeed it is. So, White Whale, obviously, you're one of the biggest names in the space these days. People have seen you run up portfolios to staggering valuations. But obviously, you had to start somewhere. So, if we go back in time when you were, a small whale calf, one of the smaller ones in the pod, take us back to your first trade. How did you get pulled into this wonderful game of trading? What was it that brought you in the first place?
I got pulled into perpetual trading actually by accident. I was doing a lot of LP work, doing some yield farming, and was having a blast doing that. And I was experimenting with different ways to hedge against impermanent loss. And it was actually my AI companion that suggested opening a perps position to hedge against impermanent loss while doing my LP work. And I was instantly hooked. I was like, well, this is better than LP work, so I'm going to go do this instead. And that was really my start. It was an accidental start into perpetual trading.
Man,
so
what
how
a beautiful
do you go
accident.
from hedging over to perps? Because obviously one is meant to be, delta neutral in a sense where you're just generating yield based on the position size, whereas perps is very much directional. How did you make the jump?
I think that my very first hedging experience, I was profitable in perps and was losing on my LP position, and so I saw the numbers and how quickly they could go up, and I said, this is great. Before that, I was just a spot trader, and I still hold spot for certain assets like Bitcoin, or I'll accumulate Solana and Ethereum, during bear market prices, but. I realized instantly the power of perps because you can go both directions. Spot is a 1x long, and that's it. And so during that time, we were in a bear market, and I was like, well, what do you mean I can make money when price goes down? And that's really what got me started was, the bi-directional nature of it.
That's fantastic. Now, when you're going from yield farming and owning spot, it's completely different to move into perps, right? That's kind of like two completely different venues, right? You're almost moving from like passive exposure to very active exposure. Like what was that like? What was that transition like? Were you like, I can't even imagine all the work that went into that.
I think that my path was very similar to what I see a lot of people doing, before they've built up their confidence, in the fact that, my hold time was very low. And I think that that's always an indicator when somebody tells me that they're scalping constantly, to me that says you're not confident, quite enough yet in your setups or what you're doing. And that's what my first experience was. Sometimes my trades were closing in as little as 30 seconds. At the most like an hour, but, I was making a bazillion trades a week, scalping and really just getting a handle of the controls and a sense for the space. That was kind of the beginning of my perps journey. And as time progressed, as confidence built and skill built, I obviously went into much longer swing trades and longer term trades as well.
So on that, obviously one of the big discussions on Twitter these days is that, you need to have a microscopic hold time to perform in this market. Do you think that's true? Do you think that's something that's siloed specifically to this, hyper intense meme coin game? Or do you think that, there is room for people who believe in coins, people for whom there is, long-term hold cycles? Where do you stand on the, short hold time to long hold time debate?
Well, those are two separate questions because you mentioned memes, and I do think the hold time on memes has become incredibly low. I don't know that there's any fixing that, right? The market has adapted to that, and we're seeing people dump faster and faster on memes. in regards to trading the majors or other assets. I think it really depends on market conditions. I will still do some scalps if that's what the market is calling for that day. I was doing scalps a lot over the last couple of months and then pivoted to more of the swing trade setup about 30 days ago. The market will tell you what the ideal, conditions are for whether you're doing a scalp or a swing or a longer term hold. And right now, I think we're in that phase of transitioning from scalping to swinging.
I like the sound of that. Does that I would assume that would be a pretty positive thing for your outlook on the market, right?
Well, I think so. I'm cautiously optimistic, right? We're hovering really close to what I believe are bear market bottom prices. And so, I'm not willing to say we're out of the woods yet or we're so back, but, I am cautiously optimistic. I've stopped shorting about 2.5 weeks ago. I'm perfectly fine missing some short opportunities just because I feel like the market wants to go up and I don't want to be on the wrong side of that trade. So I've been long only, which means trading frequency is down. But that's just kind of my own gut instinct.
That sounds good. Now, you did mention the short hold times on memes, and it's like historically low. It's comically low. Like some people are holding for only minutes is what it sounds like. Do you think that people that are making those hyper short-term trades are going to be able to successfully pivot when the market actually changes? I see this and it'd be like, you'd hear people say you got to believe in something, you got to hold something. But if you look at how people are actually trading this market, it seems like they are not doing that at all.
I don't think so. And I think human habits are the hardest to change. And, once people have this established habit of short hold times, I don't know that they easily get out from under that.
I want to go back to that first early shift you took from LPing to over into perps, White Whale. And obviously, no one has 100% strike rate. Sometimes you have days or you have weeks or even months where you're just taking L after L after L. What would your advice be to someone who's trying to rebuild their confidence if they just keep getting chewed out by the market? How do you get over that kind of repeated losses?
I think, you have to build in a break. And I wrote a piece on this just in the last couple of days, or at least I think I did. Maybe it's in my drafts. The goal of the break is not necessarily to forget that the thing happened. It's, to be able to ask yourself, can I re-enter this next trade without the emotional baggage of the last loss? And I think only when you're able to say, yes, I've moved on from the emotional baggage, should you resume trading. We see a lot of revenge trading, a lot of desperation trading. And I think that is just hands down the number one enemy that, continues to wreck most accounts.
Yeah, I'd say that's so easy to fall into as well, right? We live in a time where there's 24/7 markets. There's always a trade out there. Somebody on Twitter is always posting, their P&L on some coin. So it's hard to really focus that down and take that break. Do you have any advice for anybody out there that on how you were able to actually do that?
I wasn't so much a revenge trader, but I was a revenge DCAer, and I caught myself doing that, I think, in the early part of last year. So if the market was going against my position, I would revenge DCA and kind of force myself an exit path, or attempt to anyway. That didn't work out so great for me. There was a time early last summer, late last spring, where, I broke a couple of my rules. And this is where the Swiss cheese model really comes into play, right? You have your trading rules for a reason. And so I was shorting. The market was calling for short. It was in a perpetual downtrend. I opened a short on Solana that was supposed to be a scalp, but I was sick as a dog that day. And my rule for myself is scalps I don't leave open when I walk away from the computer. But I was like, you know what? I just want to make some money today. I'm going to open this short and then go sit on the couch and watch some TV with the wife or something and not even think about it. I come back to the computer the next day and I was significantly down, and without zooming out, without checking anything, I was just like, okay, I'm going to DCA the hell out of this. I'll force myself an exit path. Little did I realize that was the day that the macro trend shifted and we entered an upswing. And, when my position was $500,000 down, I finally zoomed out on the chart and realized, you know what? It shifted. This was a bad trade for multiple reasons. That was my first big loss, actually. Was a $500,000 loss on a Solana short because I missed the macro shift. And I broke my rules, right? If I had never broken my rules, I wouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
It's a pretty good lesson learned, right? A 500K lesson right there, right?
It was, I never failed to zoom out at this point. I never feel so impatient that, okay, I have to make some money today that, I break my trading rules. And so it was a valuable tuition, right? Anything that doesn't, take you out of the game completely is an absolutely valuable, tuition paid.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Now, do you have any other rules when you're setting up a trade like that? Like, did you have do you have like set stop losses, take profits, or is it just kind of completely dependent on the trade that you're looking at?
It varies from trade to trade. I mean, I don't like entering a trade. In fact, I advise people not to enter a trade unless you know what your exit is. You're missing a piece of the setup, and you don't really have a trading thesis if you don't have a exit target in mind when entering the trade. But, the first thing I do is a self-check. There's days, I'm human too at the end of the day. And there's days where, maybe real life stressors or other things are going on where I'm just not quite emotionally at my best self. And if I catch emotions creeping into my decision making, I just refuse to click the buttons. And, that's been a really good addition to my rule set is just being honest with oneself.
Which is very hard to do.
Has it ever been a time where doing that means that you ended up missing a trade or losing out on some gains because you held back when perhaps you should have gone in? Or is that...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just this morning, I hit the snooze on my alarm one extra time than normal. I was, 10 minutes delayed in doing my morning market analysis. My biggest conviction setup of the day was a Bitcoin long. So I set my limit orders, and the market loved to tease me and hovered right around the beginning of my scale range. And I had FOMO for a second, and I almost wanted to just jump on the bandwagon and caught myself, reminded myself we don't chase, we let the market come to us. And I just watched those green candles print without me, and that was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one thing that I want to ask about, so like we've seen the rise of perp dexes, right? If you look around, one of the biggest narratives in all of crypto is like hyperliquid perp dexes. We're trying to build them all up on Solana. So basically, we're giving leverage to everybody, is what that ends up being. And you see the results from the average trader on a lot of these platforms. They are not making money on that. They are mostly getting wrecked. So with that in mind, like what can people do to set them up to not get wrecked? What are the best ways to avoid, over leveraging and getting into bad positions? Because it seems like the majority of people, despite what you see on Twitter, are actually not making money on these perp dexes, right?
No, and all the data that we have says that and reaffirms that. I think it's a problem with our influencer culture. A lot of influencers will only post their wins, never their losses, and then you never know the full extent, of somebody's setup. I operate cross margin, typically with one position per sub account. And even I, feel hesitant to post my P&L card sometimes because people see 15x leverage and think, oh, that's what the white whale does. That's the leverage I should be using. And with my cross margin setup, my effective leverage is usually in the 3 to 5x range. I can't fathom any sane person using a 50x leverage. But, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Or they cross margin, what's their effective leverage? I like cross margin with one account or one asset per account because, as price moves more in my direction, I can now be capital efficient. I can move money out of that account and move it into different sub accounts and free up some cash. That's the only reason I use cross. But, you don't see that from a P&L card.
Yeah, 100%. That's well said. Do you have like a preferred platform that you use these days for trading?
Well, that's a setup question, Thomas. I'll piss off everybody who doesn't.
I just, there's a lot of them out there.
Do. I do. I've been pretty public about this. Look, if where you're trading makes you money and you're enjoying the experience, you find it rewarding, that's where you should trade, right? I'm not here to sell anybody, but I've really fallen in love with Pacifica. As a guy who spent 20 years in a direct-to-consumer business who, has the obsession about customer experience just ingrained into my DNA, I really gravitate towards the fact that they're, improving UI, UX in a way that most of these, boilerplate perp dexes aren't. I, for one, cannot function without scale orders. Hyperliquid has scale orders, of course, but nobody knows what the hell skew means, right? And you can't visualize that necessarily. And so Pacifica really did a bang up job with their scale orders. Really just visualizes right on the chart the consequences of your actions and helps you adjust, not only price distribution, but amount distribution, which has really improved my edge. So I'm a big fan of Pacifica, not asking you to change. People should trade where they have the most enjoyable experience.
Yeah, like 100%.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you were saying about, people seeing you using 15x leverage and, assuming that that's something they should also do. How do you manage position sizing? If you're looking at the totality of your portfolio and you're looking at entering a trade on any given day, do you have a system by which you might allocate, 5%, 10%, 15%, 1%? How do you look at that when you're constructing a portfolio for trading in the day?
Sure. I'll usually enter 2 or 3 trades depending on my, my analysis of the trade setup. The highest conviction trade gets the highest, amount of the available portfolio size, obviously. But I always, leave 2 big gaps. I typically enter with a range number 1, a range number 2. And then on top of that, I give myself a DCA range. And then I give myself what I've come to call the 10-10 range. And so, keeping my liquidation price out of the range of 10-10 is another level, which is why my effective leverage tends to be so small because, I have 4 layers there that I'm allowing for or protecting against.
Yeah, 100%. I did bring up a trade that you posted on here pretty recently. It looked like a Sol long trade. Do you want to talk about this at all? Maybe like what you were thinking about while you were going into this position and what you were, what you saw when you closed it?
So I posted on this 3 days ago. If your trade idea feels comfortable, you're probably the exit liquidity for someone whose idea felt uncomfortable 3 days ago. I entered the Sol long position on Friday, I think it was Thursday night, Friday. And, it was an uncomfortable feeling. And, that's the one thing I've learned trading crypto is, you have to be able to embrace the uncomfortable. What we do in this space is so counterintuitive to any skill set I've ever developed in my life outside of trading. And so, I saw this setup several days ago, held through the weekend. It was not profitable. It was, in the red half the time. And sure enough, here we are today, wake up to it fully exiting. And, it was a prime example of, it didn't feel comfortable at the time, but, the thesis paid out and the thesis was accurate.
Yeah. And so, I got a question. Okay. So what are you using what indicators are you using when you're analyzing the market? Cause I think I saw somewhere that you aren't too into TA. Right, you're not like a technical trader, but so what do you look for then?
I look at liquidity. I operate under the apex predator theory, and that was something I entered my perps trading with. When I sat down and decided I'm going to get into perps trading, the first rule, the first universal truth that I admitted to myself and has been part of my framework has been that these markets are manipulated. These aren't organic markets. The same could be said of the stock market, by the way. And so with that in mind, let's look for signs of the crime. Let's look at, what's the apex predator intent? Where are the prey circling, and congregating. And so, I look at a variety of liquidation heat maps. I have a checklist that I run through. Part of that is, ROI, just because there's a bright yellow band of liquidations, at a certain level that every TikToker sees. Does that necessarily mean that they're going to go for that? Does the cost to get there outweigh the benefit of getting there? And so, there's multiple layers that I, push myself through. And to your point, yeah, TA is almost the afterthought. I mean, I think TA is performative. I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy more than anything. It's a great history book, right? It tells you what has happened. And I hate TA so much that I have Fable do my TA for me. I feed the charts and the candle data into Fable, and I say, do the TA for me, because I just hate it that much. I mean, you have to look at it. But it doesn't carry a ton of weight in my decision making.
Yeah, I love that. I also am not the biggest guy into TA, and I feel like I wouldn't say that it's solved, but you can get a lot of the information that you need using AI, which leads me to my next question. Can you use AI to analyze any of that other data, like before you're going
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you have your checklist that you go through, and you send it into Fable and say, hey, this is my checklist. This is the coin I'm interested in. Does it match my criteria for a trade? Or how are you using it, I guess, would be my question.
So funny story. I was convinced last year, I had a thesis last year that, these markets are not as chaotic and unpredictable as everybody believes that they are, that you can predict, what's going to happen if you're analyzing enough data, enough of the right data. And you'll laugh now, and that's okay, because it was working and made me lots of money, so I don't care. But last year, I had spent a lot of time training up ChatGPT to be my co-pilot. And I had dialed in ChatGPT so much, and this was on the 4.0 model. I had dialed in ChatGPT so much that with like a 99% accuracy, I could tell you what the markets on the majors were going to do over the next 18 hours. And it made me a crap ton of money. I mean, I spent a lot of time training up the model and pushing back and having live conversations with it until the day it broke. When they were getting ready to release 5, they released some under the hood performance updates. And when I say performance, I mean their efficiencies, reducing their costs, dumbing down the model. And it was July. It was the day I was in a Telegram group, and I was telling a handful of people, I was like, all right, Bitcoin short today. Like, this is the highest conviction print I've ever seen from my system. Like, absolutely, go copy trade me on this one. And that was the day Bitcoin set a new all-time high. And so, walking away, I was like, okay, why did this break? What happened? And I spent a lot of time diagnosing the results there. And, what I come to find out is that, it was too good. That was a setup for people like me that were looking beneath the surface. And I felt so bad that I told everybody, I was like, send me your wallet addresses. If you're in this group and you copy trade me, I'll make you whole. Thankfully, like only 4 people did. And, I made them whole because I felt really horrible about, being so confident.
Just touching on that. Sorry. Does having an audience change the way you trade then? Because obviously, you've got 100,000 followers, you've got a lot of people watching you. Does that play into how you set up every single trade, even if it's one you're not sharing publicly?
It does in a sense. To finish up the AI piece, like I stopped using GPT because it just could never perform again the way that it had. It had been dumbed down too much. Recently, in the last couple months, I've discovered the power of Fable. And Fable is, to me, the closest to what GPT used to be last spring and summer. And so what I've done with Fable is I've made a very solid rule. Like, I'll never let it be the signal, but it's the co-pilot of the airplane. And so, the co-pilot of the airplane is there to look at the gauges and the dials and make sure the pilot in command is not missing something. And the second I feel myself falling into complacency of letting Fable call the trade, I pause. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And so, if you're just feeding data to AI and blindly taking its call, I think you're going to get wrecked. But when you feed data into AI and you know how to analyze that data yourself and you push back, you ask questions, you say, did you consider this? I think you're giving too much weight to this. the goal is that the best answer wins, right? It's not for you to be right or for your AI companion to be right. It's to extract the best answer with the data available.
Yeah, that's so well said. I feel like I did the same thing, and I lost a bunch of money trying to trade based on AI calls. So the right way to do it is what you're saying. The wrong way to do it is to just blindly ape.
Correct. And about having an audience, yes, it did impact me. Like I learned a very valuable lesson. I've learned a couple lessons. First of all, my favorite lesson is that the more people that call me an idiot on the timeline for a trade idea, the more confirmation I have that my trade idea is probably the correct one. The markets never reward, crowded thinking. And so, it's not necessarily part of my signal set, but if I do happen to post a trade idea ahead of time and I get called a retard about 50 times, I'm feeling pretty good that I have the right setup. But,
CT is a great counter signal.
It absolutely is. But more than that, it did negatively impact me. And the biggest example I can give with that is I had this big arbitrary number last year. I had a 100 million P&L goal. And I had that in my bio. And that was a personal goal that was very specific to me because I walked away from, my traditional business that I had spent 20 years building. And that was always my exit target for my traditional business. But I found myself so miserable doing what I was doing that, instead of waiting for an exit opportunity, I just said, screw it, guys, handed the keys over to the executives and said, run it the best you can. I'm out. Like, I'm going to choose peace over profits. And since that had always been my target, I made that my target for crypto. And I said, I want to be able to do in a single year what I wasn't able to do in 20 years of my traditional business. And the reality is I had reached that P&L goal. But I had not reached that P&L goal in protocols that were necessarily public. Some of it was, centralized exchanges. Some of it was perp dexes that don't really have good, good public-facing data. On Hyperliquid at one point, it was 98 out of 100 million. And I kept going when I knew I wanted to stop for the year because proof or it didn't happen, right? And so even though I had actually achieved the goal, I felt this peer pressure of proof or it didn't happen and continued to trade past September, which, was kind of my cutoff for myself. And it really became an issue of ego and, the public pressure of being able to prove every single thing that you say. Which had obviously a very negative effect, as then I ended up being the largest liquidation on the planet for 1010. And so, yes, it negatively impacted me. At this point, I trade from wallets that are not public. And, I typically don't post my trading positions. I'm very careful on how I post my trading positions. I don't want to dox my trading wallet. If it gets doxed, I'll just switch to another one because I don't like that pressure. Additionally, I don't like the pressure of everybody trying to copy trade me because, if too many people are copy trading me, then I don't have to be good. I just have to be the signal and everybody else makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I would rather be, good than right. I think those are two different things. And then also you hear the stories, you hear the positive stories about people copy trading you. I've had people in my DMs like, hey, copy trading you has made me 6 figures this year. And that feels great. But I'm more worried about the guy with $10 to his name that gets wrecked because he doesn't understand my full setup. And, blindly apes thinking, the white whale 15x long at this position on Sol. And then he gets liquidated and I don't. Because the trading setup's not the same. That wears on me as well. I feel really bad for those people. So I don't recommend copy trading. I don't copy trade anyone. But I am very happy to not be trading in the public eye at this point in my trading journey. And quite frankly, I do not care about the proof or it didn't happen. I know what my P&L is. I know what my account balance is, and I'm very happy with that.
That's amazing. So we need to hear about this $100 million trade and how you managed to get up to that level. But You tweeted recently about this. I mean, my least favorite chart that I've ever seen is this Wall Street cheat sheet, the psychology chart. Man, I every time I look at this, it just gives me PTSD for some reason. But Grok put out that Bitcoin is down in the depression stage. Do you think that do you want to talk about this chart? Like, you said that you agree with Grok that we are in the depression state. So, do you think we're coming out of that, and big targets are going to be, we're going to be heading towards those ranges in the future here? Or what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 3 months ago, I said that 58,000 was going to be the cycle bottom for Bitcoin. I missed it by $1,000. I still believe that the high 50s were the bear market bottom for Bitcoin. I've also said, look, I could be wrong. I'm just a simple whale, right? Like, I have no ego in this. I could be right. I could be wrong. It's my personal belief, and it's the foundation of my, trading theses that, the bear market bottoms are in. But, like I said at the beginning of the call, we're not necessarily out of the woods yet. When we're hovering really close to bear market bottoms, all it takes is one black swan to push us lower. But generally speaking, I do think that, markets want to go up. I think that, part of it is we have to wait for capital rotation. Everybody's chasing the new shiny object with AI, and everything, that touches AI. And, when that stops being easy money and easy, quick returns, I think we're going to start seeing some of that capital rotate back.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we had like a plus 6% day on Bitcoin. I'm just pulling up the chart now, and it looks like we're at 68.6K. So let's go.
Let's go, man.
So going back to that $100 million P&L target that you had, does that mean that one day if White Whale just disappears from Twitter, we never hear from you again? Does that mean that you've achieved that goal, or do you love the game too much to ever leave?
I love the game too much to ever leave, but I think it would change what my day-to-day looks like. I'd be probably even more selective. Look, I mean, I've been a self-starter, a self-made guy my entire life. I started from absolute nothing. I've been homeless more than once in my life and grew up incredibly dirt poor. And so everything that I've done in life has been, pulling myself up by my bootstraps. And so I'm really driven. I don't know that retirement would suit me very well. I feel like I need to be a productive member of society in some form or fashion. And I don't know that I have the same P&L target, because I spent a lot of time thinking about that. I was like, that was a really stupid, arbitrary number. Is there really any difference, in your life between 90 million and 100 million or even 70 million? Like, you're talking about absolute life-changing generational wealth. And so, I don't have a specific target anymore. My target is looking at my family and saying, how can I set my family up to live comfortably, not necessarily lavishly, but live comfortably, after I'm dead and gone from this earth. And, what does it take to get there? And the answer might be a much smaller number, right? My thought process last year is, once I hit the goal, I'll keep going and just give 100% of it to charity. And, I'd probably do something similar this time, but, diversifying myself, maybe, putting more of my time into teaching and education in this space, could be something that I would enjoy doing in my quote unquote retirement. But I don't think I'm ever going to disappear. I love this space too much.
I love it. I love it. Now, if you were starting over with a smaller account today, where would you be looking at? What do you like? What's some advice that you could give us?
I think people have to find their own superpower, right? My superpower just happens to be perps. I fought that being my superpower. After 1010, I kind of had this like, screw this space. I'm over it. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm never touching perps again. And I spent months, going back to all the other areas in crypto that I used to be in, and just was not, having the type of success that I wanted to see. And, one day this spring, I woke up and I just asked myself a question of like, why am I fighting this? Why am I fighting the thing that I'm good at? but perps might not be your superpower, right? So find your superpower. I know a good friend of mine is just an absolute wizard at LP work. And, there's nobody on the planet better than him that I've ever met. I go to him for advice, and I've done a lot of LP work, and that's his superpower. And that's great. That's what he should be doing in life. So, crypto is such a broad space with so many opportunities. I think people really just need to take the time and figure out what their superpower is, and then focus all of their effort on improving that skill set.
Oh, that's so well said.
Very solid. So on the other side of that, who should not become a trader? What are any kind of psychological traits that you would be, a red flag for a lot of people who might want to get started slinging perps around, or, trading spot?
I think impulse control, emotional control. If you're a person that tends to have an addictive personality, or, a really hard time, managing your emotions, it's probably not for you. I mean, I've always said that if you want to live long and prosper, you need to be a Vulcan. You need to have logic prevail. You need to turn off those emotions, because I just see that as being the number one thing that continually wrecks people. And it's not just fear and greed, right? Everybody thinks about those two as the dominant emotions in this space, but I would say that perhaps the most dominant emotion in the space is desperation. People really want to change their life. They have limited capital to do it. I can't tell you the number of times where I've counseled people not to use incredibly high leverage, and their answer has always been, but I have very little dollars, so I have to. Well, you're going to have less dollars, after that trade because you did. And so desperation is, a really damaging emotion in this space. It's noble to want to change your life, and you should be pursuing, a path that allows you to change your life and change your circumstance. But if desperation is driving the bus, you're going to get wrecked.
Yeah, 100%. That's extremely well said. When you're trying to get rich quick, it seems like there's a lot of ways you can go broke quicker. But I do want to ask you, I know you're, talking about, taking it easy, but what about some of your wildest trades, right? You've obviously had some big P&Ls, some big trades. Is there any wild trades that you're willing to share with us?
I love this question because I have a perfect example. Last year, I was positioned for a long-term, hold on a Sol long. I mean, at one point last year, I had the most open interest of any single trader for Solana long in the world. Through multiple sub accounts. It wasn't even just one sub account. I'd max out. I was on Hyperliquid, so I'd max out the size, which I think on Solana was 100 million notional. And then I would go do the same thing on a couple other accounts. But I was in a really large Solana long position. It was a Sunday. My family was over visiting my parents, and I started getting alerts on my phone. That was the first time Trump decided to bomb Iran. It was a Sunday night. Sunday afternoon, evening, and I watched my Solana long position go to negative 19 million, 19 million in the red. And I'm not going to pretend that that wasn't scary, but I knew I just had to survive because markets hate surprises. And by Tuesday, it was going to be green again. And sure enough, by Tuesday, it was green again. It was the night that I really, said, man, I love this space because nowhere else in the world can you throw collateral on Aave and get a $3 million loan in 3 minutes to help, put a bigger buffer on your position. And, I told that story multiple times too. I was like, this is why I love crypto so much, because I was able to move some hard assets and get a $3 million loan in 3 minutes on a Sunday. God, I love this space. Of course, because my wallet address was public, I had to just ignore X because everybody was like, oh my God, the white whale's getting wrecked. Look at him. He's $19 million down. I just ignored the timeline. Fast forward a couple months, I closed out that position at 24 million profit. And so, that was my favorite story because my conviction in my trade setup did not change. There was an unexpected event that caused a really large drawdown. If this would have been a fundamental market shift, event, would have I cut losses and got out, before 19 million? Of course I would have. But, nothing changed. It's just the market did not like the Sunday night surprise. And I knew that my position, I felt confident and convicted in my position and held through the drawdown and turned it into a $24 million gain.
I love the idea of you having, friends and family over on a Sunday and all of a sudden you get a message and you're down 19 million and you just have to brush it off and kind of get on with your life.
My wife caught on. She was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a little bit scary right now." But of course I got to put on a good face for the kids and my parents who don't understand what I do. I swear they think I work at Bitcoin, right? That classic, cliche. But I had to put on a solid face for everybody and go about the family evening. And secretly I was sweating a little bit, but it turned out well.
That's so insane. So how do you go from a $40 million swing to trading anything in a small size? That is negative 19 to plus $24 million. That is a insane swing there. Did you take some time off after that, or how do you even go back to trading normal size after that?
Well, it was a little bit nerve-wracking. I was still in trades, and so there was no going back to anything. I just didn't exit the trades I was in. At that point in the market, I was in longer-term holds anyway. And so, after those trades exited, I may have sized down a little bit. But I also felt, a false sense of confidence. And so while that's a really compelling story about, if your conviction hasn't changed, don't freely give away money to the market, it also has the negative side to it as well of, what led up to 1010 for me was this false sense of confidence of I've survived all these crazy black swan events. I've seen what a big drawdown looks like and it doesn't really worry me. Because I had not been trading perps as long as I've been in crypto, I, mistakenly believed that crypto was past the FTX collapses and the C19 crashes and these big black swan events. I felt like, we were more mature than that and that we had grown past that. And so I thought that I knew what a black swan looked like. And I was prepared for that. There was nothing, Trump or anybody else could have done that could have, liquidated me. I wasn't prepared for the fiasco that happened on 1010. And that caught me off guard. And so, building up that false sense of confidence of I know what this looks like and I can survive it. Oh, well, ultimately, I learned a very valuable lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, that is so much alpha. Mr. White Whale, thank you so much for that. Now, do you want to leave us with any more advice that you have for any traders that are listening in, regarding the next 6 months? Is there any more alpha that you can give us?
I would say just be patient. The markets are there 24/7. You don't have to make every trade. If you're not passing your own self-check for the day as far as being able to manage emotions or managing the impulse to chase, it's okay to set out. The market will be there tomorrow. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give is manage those emotions and remind yourself you don't have to do it all in a single trade.
Fantastic. Don't make it all in one single trade. It's, the advice we often hear is make it all back in one trade. Mr. White Whale is saying the opposite. Listen, Whale, it's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you. I think Thomas and I have both learned a tremendous amount of information. If people want to learn more about you, they want to follow you, they want to see what you're doing on Twitter, where can they go?
At White Whale Labs is my only official account, my only account, period.
Fantastic. Well, it's been brilliant having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. We do have our next guest waiting in the wings to come on, but it's been an absolute delight speaking from you and learning from you.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Man.
What a G. Imagine having a $90 million UP&L.
Yeah, I would not be able to sit comfortably around my family if that was happening,
I can't imagine anything more terrifying than opening up your phone and seeing minus 19 million. It would be absolutely completely debilitating.
So crazy. I don't know how you hold at that level. I try to get out of that as quick as I could.
Yeah, balls of steel, I guess. Now, our next guest, Thomas, is someone who has seen many, many cycles, someone who's a bit of a Solana OG veteran. Do you want to tell us a bit about who we can expect to join us next?
Yeah. So next up, we have got Fxnction. So he's been in crypto a long time, right? Originally it was Shil Nye on Twitter, and I followed him back in the day. He made, I don't know, I feel like he kind of traded everything throughout the different cycles. So he was super early to a lot of the Solana NFTs. Like that's where, I think I really like followed the Fxnction account, saw what he was doing, and it kind of seems like he's dabbling back in NFTs now. So I'm really curious to kind of see, how he's thinking about the markets now, compare this to other cycles, where are we at, and where he's focusing his attention, right? So there's a lot to go over, and I'm excited to hear from Fxnction.
All right, let's bring him on.
Oh, there he is. Welcome.
What's going on, gentlemen? Glad to be here.
Yeah,
out in the wilderness, joining us from the countryside. Love to see it.
Yeah, I'm up in the mountains of Colorado. It's beautiful up here.
Oh, that is beautiful. Are you still doing any golfing? I remember, I think you were doing a golfing challenge before where you had your birdie coin, and I saw that you were one of the few people in the world to actually make money while golfing.
It was fucking awesome. Yeah, I'm still golfing. I haven't hit enough golf this summer, to be honest with you. It was like a heat wave in Colorado and just like super hot. But I've been hitting the course a little bit here and there, and I got to turn that stream back on and get back to streaming some golf.
Yeah, there you go.
Hot, but it's fun.
Sounds good. So we brought you on here. I've been wanting to hear from you, hear what's going on, hear how you think about the markets. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, definitely. Man, I've been doing this crypto stuff for a long time, since like 2017, 2018, full time now. And like you said in the intro, I was pretty early to like Solana NFTs, and recently just been kind of building out our marketing agency and a couple other like projects that we've been working on, like our Robert NFTs and things like that. I know this is a Solana show, but that is on Robinhood. It's caught my attention, the Robinhood chain, being early to Solana and kind of seeing the similarities in the attention, and like also have a whole new like base of users that are ready to participate in a brand new chain was really interesting to me, and is very interesting to me. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun bull run. I think Solana's got like so much liquidity and so much attention now, and actually like some established base for meme coins. Like I think a lot of people forget. I'll ramble a little bit here for a second, but I think a lot of people
I'm loving it.
Like on Ethereum, it's like there was so many cycles that it took for some of the meme coins to actually have like an established base to survive multiple cycles. And it really, like last cycle was the first meme coin cycle for Solana. Before that, like the very beginning of meme coins that were anywhat relevant was Bonk in the bear market. There were meme coins before that, but nobody really cared about them or traded them heavily. And so I think this cycle is going to be really interesting because we've got new competitors like Robinhood Chain that actually have really like established dominance in the financial world outside of crypto. And we have like Ansem and other people that are really stepping up and owning like, yeah, let's make Solana something big and let's make sure that meme coins come back here. And so it's going to be a fun cycle.
The quick question on the Robinhood area and the Robinhood ecosystem. Do you find that the average Robinhood user on chain is fundamentally different to this average Solana user, or do you think 100%. It's just the same people moving across back and forth?
I think it's like probably the same people, but there's just like a fundamental, I think just like a mentality difference in like the people that are buying and like participating on like EVM chains. There always has been. Like EVM holders have always been known to hold coins longer than Solana holders. I also think it's the way that like bundlers decide to launch coins, right? Like there's a lot more, like if you really study the trenches, I've been sitting here for years doing this, right? And if you really study like the bundles, the snipers, these things like that, like a coin that comes out at Solana and is at 15K normally has anywhere between a 35 to 50% bundle. And it's pretty clear, and like a lot of people get scared by that, but it also is the thing that actually creates the volume on the coin. You know, and if the bundler is like respectably in quotes, selling like into the volume and not one clipping, then it can actually create the volume that's necessary for the traction to grow. We don't really see that heavily on Robinhood right now. I think like a couple weeks ago, there was more prevalent when Cash Cat was running and there was more attention, and a lot of Solana bundlers were coming over to Robinhood and trying to play the same tactics. But Solana's really their home, sadly. And I guess it's not sadly, but it's kind of a mix of both. Like there's a positive and a benefit to it, or a positive and a negative to it. And so I think there's just like different price action, and a lot of people are buying on Robinhood Chain or Ethereum, and like, or even Base sometimes. I've seen a lot of Base action. I personally am not really participating heavily there, but a lot of people are buying EVM coins to like buy, hold, and wait, from what I noticed, versus like Solana, where it's like Solana is the casino, and it always has been, and it kind of like, as long as the mentality stays the same way, it always will be. Like, get in, go with the trenches, try to make 20 SOL, 50 SOL, 100 SOL, log off for the day. That's the way people think there.
Yeah, it really is. And, I feel like this has been like a pretty big topic, right? Where it's like Pump Fund has dominated the trenches, right? They came in, they made launching coins super easy. Is there something that they're doing that is just making like sniping and bundling super easy? Or is that do you think that's just more of like Solana's a more mature meme coin ecosystem, so the bundlers are going there and they haven't really, bridged over to Robinhood yet? Like, what's your thinking there?
I think it's the opportunity that the bundlers have to make money. I think that like a lot of these guys like will sit and bundle a coin from 5 to 10K or whatever, 2 to 5K, whatever it is. They'll get 20% of the supply, 30% of the supply before it even touches a 10K market cap or a 15K market cap, And so with so much liquidity and volume constantly flowing through like Solana, Pump Fund, etc., it just makes it really easy for those guys to like find a good narrative, bundle it up, make their daily like amount, and then whether or not the coin runs doesn't really matter to them. You can see it happen on Robinhood like 3 weeks ago when like shit was popping and Uniswap Launchpad was coming out, and this Launchpad, and then it's Pawns V2 and all these like new innovative things. Like it kind of just cycles between chains, but it's heavily on Solana, and you could see it on Robinhood too a few weeks ago. Like coins just launching are at 15K. Well, how are they at 15K in the first 15 seconds? Like a group of people knew what they were doing and they all bundled it together, or one guy bundled it alone, with a bunch of wallets. And so it's more of like a profitability tactic for meme coin launchers rather than anything around Pump Fund, in my opinion. Whether it's mature or not is a whole other conversation. I think there's like a balance to it. I think like bundling is necessary and good to send a coin like to hundreds of millions if that's really your intention. But a lot of the game is just like bundle a bunch of SOL in at 10K market cap and make sure you're out by 50K, and it really makes it challenging to navigate for anybody that's like not a skilled participant.
I find it hard to believe at the same time. I'm going to push back on that theory a little bit, right? Because everyone now is entering crypto. They're using FOMO, they're using Pump, they're using Axiom. They're using these apps that completely abstract which chain you're on. So if the volume is on Robinhood, eventually all the deploys and all the bundles are just going to shift over to Robinhood. We're going to have the exact same mechanic play out over on Robinhood. Am I wrong here? Do you think that it's just a ticking time bomb, and eventually Robinhood is going to be exactly like Solana is now in terms of people bundling at obscenely low market caps?
I fully agree with you. Like, I fully think it can go that way. Not a question. I think it just depends upon the volume and the activity on low market cap meme coins in the trenches, right? Like, if you look at Robinhood over the last few days, like the last 5 days, there's been some like runners that have hit 200, 500, even 1 million. And like the amount of coins that are bonding on Robinhood over an hour period versus Pump Fund and Solana is so different, right? Like, Solana, dude, like I'll log on right now. If I went to Axiom, I'd bet you money I'd see at least bare minimum 5 or 6 coins that have bonded in the last 30, 45 minutes. You go to Robinhood right now, it's probably a coin that bonded maybe an hour ago or 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. And they're like trying to get attention to it in different ways. And there's really big runners. And so when Cash Cat goes and dips to 60 mil, and then the next fucking 3 days it's at 250 mil, and there's all this volume and activity, then 100% all the bundlers move over to Robinhood. That's where the activity is, blah, 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 blah. And then Slinger launches Toad and Mike Dudas buys it, right, or whatever. and it goes to 12 million, well, all the liquidity just runs right back to Solana because that's where the runner is, right? It's kind of like this weird game of chasing liquidity, if anything, or like, I think that's what most people do is they're trying to chase liquidity, where the real smart guys are trying to position themselves before the liquidity really gets there.
So is there a future for unks like us who have longer hold times, who have seen multiple cycles and don't want to be jumping in and out of meme coins in 30 seconds? Or do you think that game is over for us?
Not at all. I think it's like more about positioning yourselves in things that have like survived over a day or 2 days or 3 days. Like holding is not for coins that are like 24 hours or less, unless it's a unique scenario and situation, in my opinion. Like unless it's like one of those narratives that you really, really, truly believe in. But it's just so hard to navigate, like, what the fuck's going to happen in the first even like 3 hours of a coin, or like I'm talking about 24 hours, but most of the guys I'm talking about won't even look at a coin for 3 hours. They won't even look at a coin for 30 minutes. And so if you're trying to trench in order to buy and hold coins, it becomes a very, 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 very different game and very challenging, because you might be able, unless you have a lot of capital. If you got a fuck ton of capital and it doesn't matter, then who cares about throwing 5 SOL at 50 coins? Like, cool, 250 SOL to you doesn't matter. Like, do it. You're probably going to hit some fucking bangers. But for the dudes that like, don't have a shit ton of capital to play with, like in that regard, to just like gamble away on low caps and want to like actually maybe size something at 100, 200, 500K, that's probably going to be more like of a leveraged bet for them on meme coins, because there's going to be 100 million runners. Like, if you want to catch something at 15K, it's kind of just like a fun game at this point, or you're trying to like actually create some crazy P&L. You can catch the same coin with like 10x more size and put $2,000 in instead of $200 at 200K or 300K, and like believe in trying to trust in the process over a few week or month period to see if it'll like unfold. So I don't think the game's changed in that way. There's going to be $100 million runners, and they clearly aren't happening over a day period anymore. I think that might be dead from 2025. I'm not sure that'll ever come back. But yeah, it's really hard to say like go trench and then buy coins and then like wait fucking 6 hours. Like, good luck, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's a whole game. It's in itself.
It is a crazy game, right? I feel like FOMO has kind of changed it. They made it super easy to go multi-chain. They're bringing in a bunch of people from outside of crypto Twitter, which I like. But I think they just some numbers were just published where it's like 6% of users are profitable at this point. So I mean, are people just getting brought into like the slaughterhouse and they're just getting absolutely wrecked? Because that's kind of what it seems like, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how true those numbers are. I don't know all the statistics behind it. I didn't see that. And like, I think what people have to realize is like, if you're coming into any kind of meme house, you're coming into a slaughterhouse. Yeah. Like, it's not FOMO, it's not pump fun. Like, it's the fact that this is like the culture around like low cap meme coin trenching is slaughter each other. That's why it's so fucking challenging. It's because that's the way that these people think when they're launching and they're bundling these things, is how the fuck do I get this to 100K so I can slaughter everyone for fucking 7K or 10K?
So brutal.
It's brutal. It is. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of like the FOMO versus pump fun thing's really interesting to me. I mean, if you guys know, I was like the biggest user of Vector, which was like the first major breakout social trading app. Did the most volume there, had the best P&Ls there. A couple people beat me on some crazy $1 million ones. But long story short, I'm very familiar with like social trading. I've worked with Pump Fun in contract. I've worked with FOMO in contract at different times. I'm not in contract with either right now, but I am aware of like what's going on and seeing it all. And I'll be just straight up. I think a lot of it's noise, Like, there's a lot of things that FOMO can improve upon on their app, like limit orders, basic things that like would make the experience a little simpler. But for the most part, they've made a really fucking cool app. So is Pump Fun. Like, Pump Fun works great when I'm trying to buy shit. But right now, it's just like a battle of attention of like, who's got the best trader and who's got the worst stats versus the best stats, and how can we like inflate a little bit over here? How can we like change the stats over here a little bit? And overall, I think social trading is like a fun game. It's a unique way to like play around with meme coins. It also has its own dangers, but it's no more dangerous than trying to create an Axiom profile and trying to gamble meme coins on your own. It's actually probably a little less dangerous. And so like the biggest problem with like most of the meme coin culture and the thing that we're all talking about right now centers around self-responsibility. Like most people just don't have the ability to like hold self-responsibility, like be self-responsible with their money and then also be self-accountable when they lose it. And really like own the fact that they made the decision to like make the trade no matter where they read the information from or who they saw say something bullish about it. And that's like I've been in crypto for 10 years. That's been the core problem for every single high volatile asset, whether we're talking about DeFi summers or NFT like seasons or anything. Like the ability to have self-responsibility and self-accountability is usually the downfall of most users, no matter what fucking platform you're using.
That's so well said. Yeah. I feel like you got to size your bets, right? Like I played a lot of internet poker and it was always like, you never go broke by not putting money on the table, right? You know, you always have like 100 bets behind whatever you're betting. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And when I think about the trenches, like it's so cutthroat. Like, what would you tell somebody that is interested in joining? They're like, hey, like I want to buy some meme coins. What should I do? Like what would your general advice be so that they're not in the 94% of the losers or whatever it is?
Dude, the number one thing that everyone should do is get a group. Like, and I'm not talking about going and finding a paid group that has like 1,000 people in it that's like some guys calling shit. No, I'm talking about going and finding like a niche group of people that are putting in similar amounts of time and effort and energy into trenching as you are. You know, some people are going to put more, some are going to put less, but as long as you have a group of even 3 to 4 or 5 guys, and don't like, I recommended don't make it too big. I just closed my Telegram group and I made my trenching group all Robert NFT gated because I was like, there's 150 people in here. Like, what the fuck are we doing? There's like, you can't throw a fucking 20K meme coin into a 150 group, you know, like without really affecting the price or without like some people buying it and then jeeting it really quickly and fucking shit up. And so long story short, like get a group of guys. You might not even know anyone in crypto, but just go on crypto Twitter, start fucking seeing like who's commenting on the same coins that you're in all the time, DM them, ask them if they got a Telegram, ask if you want to make a Telegram with them. Like you need to have another like multiple sets of eyes and ears and like fingers on the pulse in the trenches if you're actually really, really going to kill it. Like I feel, I'll say it's hard to follow up White Whale, but my biggest, like one of my biggest runs was like 10 in the trenches specifically was like 10K to 800K in 3 weeks, you know, but that was not capable. Like it was during AI season, 2025. It was stupid. It was like press button, money go up. Anyways, like that was partially due to like my ability to like pick coins and be skilled, but it was very heavily weighted in the fact that like I had a good group of guys. They were all in the right mindset. They were all coordinated. We all got on Telegram voice chats every single fucking day, live in the trenches. We were talking about what we were actually doing. We're like, yo, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, you know? It becomes really challenging to do. It's almost impossible to do it alone with no previous skill. I mean, I've been doing crypto for 10 fucking years, and I will tell you, if I try to trench alone, like I might hit some fucking winners, but it's very challenging to like stay consistently profitable. And then I would say that's like the main thing. Get a group of guys, get a group of guys together, really work hard and figure it out.
That's such good advice. I feel like trading is so social, and it's there's a lot to, you know, sharing, you know, how you guys think about coins. Because I mean, I feel like it's tough, especially with meme coins and in the trenches. It's like a coin will launch in the middle of the night and you'll want to just throw money at it, where it's like, you're not going to be making your best trades. Your mind isn't the clearest then. So I feel like to have people to bounce those ideas around and to really, you know, like understand what's going on is so valuable. So I think that's great advice. And I feel like FOMO really kind of captured that. Right, like they made the social. I'm sure Pump has that as well, where it's like you can see what other people are doing and you can kind of create groups on there now. Is that Do you think having groups on there is valuable, or do you think getting the Telegram groups is better?
I mean, I like the pump fund groups. I messed around with the pump fund groups for a really long time. I think they're fun. I don't think it necessarily matters like where you have the group. It's more just like, is the group actively participating? Are they aligned? And then like, is there a clear form of communication? Like, we built a custom hangout for our Robert NFT holders that's like literally a digital hangout with live voice chat and stuff, because like one of the elements that I love about Telegram is actually being able to like talk to people on a voice chat and actually have a communication about a coin, because things move so quickly that I might drop a CA in a group chat, say a few words about it, and then 20 minutes or even fucking 2 minutes later, it's going down 40%. And, you know, I'm questioning my thesis, but someone else might see it and be like, no, you're right on your thesis. Hold. Right. And so there's elements that I think some apps do really well, and some apps are just like kind of still based in like post a CA and hope someone buys it. Like, but a lot of these social apps are getting a lot closer to like what I like the final vision that I kind of see of like how they all interact with each other. I think a lot of these, I think where FOMO and a lot of pump fund will probably head is like leaning heavier on private groups. I think the private group mechanic is probably where like people will succeed more than just copy trading people who post theses publicly.
I think what's really becoming the trend with social trading is that we actually stop trading coins and we start trading people. You know, you're looking at coins and you look to see if Frank is in, or if, you know, whichever other influencer of the day is in, and you almost follow their moves rather than seeing what is actually happening around coins and things of that nature. Function, I've been loving chatting to you about the trenches, but we need you to step up to the trading floor now. Do you have a thesis for us? What's the ticker? What if you were opening up the markets today and looking to make a trade, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd probably just like hit a nice little long on Solana, to be honest with you. Like, I was debating whether we'd see another leg down. It's still a potential, but the reality is everything's looking pretty bullish right now, and sentiment's looking bullish. In terms of memes, like, besides obviously buy some fucking Roberts and some Robert NFTs on Robinhood, everybody. But besides that, like, my bet would just be on an ecosystem in general, right? Like, I would take a leveraged bet on Robinhood Chain if I could take a whole bet on the chain, you know? I think the fact that we have a coin or even multiple coins in the 8-9 figure range on a chain that was only a couple months old is absolutely incredible, especially for any person that like trenches or meme coins at all. And the fact that the like founders and the leaders are actually being vocally and publicly supportive of meme coins and starting to discuss them publicly is, and it doesn't make me like, I want to be very clear, it doesn't make me bearish on Solana, but it's a very, very polar opposite of the way that the founders and the foundation of Solana approach meme coins and their approach on them. I don't think that affects really the outcome that much, but I do think with like Vlad tweeting about Cash Cat and showing it in quarterly meetings, like he's pretty much signaling to everyone, hey, we're going to make this like meme coins and RWAs and this culture a very big part of Robinhood and the Robinhood app, and this is the very, very start of it. And so while I'm not bearish on Solana at all, I'm very bullish on Solana and the whole ecosystem. I think you can be bullish on both. I'm actually extra bullish on Robinhood this cycle because it's like a whole new appetite of users and a whole new appetite of retail and actual access to retail. Like, everyone talks about retail coming in all the time, but I'm convinced that retail wasn't really here like last cycle. Sure, there's probably a couple people trading meme coins, but there was way more fucking retail here during NFT season than there ever was during meme coin season. And you can see that just from the social like celebrity spectrum of people who were participating in NFTs versus meme coins. It's a different degree. And so I think that with I'm rambling, but I think with Robinhood Chain, like, it opens up a door to retail where we can actually see them come in, not just speculate on whether they're participating or not.
So what's the best way to execute that thesis then? Is that just to go long on Hood? Do you think that there's enough of a kind of value capture from the Hood chain to the Hood stock?
Probably. I'm not really a huge stock guy, if I'm being honest with you. That's not my expertise at all. If I was going to do anything, I just go like essentially like study and figure out what coins are doing well, why are they doing well on Robinhood Chain, and like take a leveraged bet on whether you think they're going to continue to do well. You know, like it's pretty clear that like Cash Cat, Stonks for a while, Tendies, Stonk Brokers is like kind of in that, like it's way more unique than that. But like a lot of these are all based around the culture of Robinhood, the history of Robinhood, the like, yeah, the whole culture of the entire chain and their entire, like not in chain, but like their entire app, their entire product, their entire history of their company. Right. And so a lot of these will just do well naturally based off of people coming in and relating to those like theses and narratives. So I don't know, I'd be taking leveraged bets on that and Stonk Brokers and things that are showing innovation and being different as well as like standing out.
Yeah, I'd say that Robinhood's launch was like pretty impressive when you look at it. They're not very old. They've got a ton of traction. And I mean, when you look at the traction that Base got when it came out, like Robinhood has just destroyed Base, especially when it comes to meme coins. And I think that a lot of it is that was kind of already their culture. Like it was meme coins, but it was like meme stocks, right? So exactly. I feel like the transition feels a lot more natural for them. And I think you see it in those charts, right?
Yep. I mean, it's incredible what Stonk Brokers has done in a fucking 30-day period, you know? I mean, to go from a free mint to, what, 15 ETH floor at the very top or something, and over a $50 million market cap or something like that on the coin. It just shows that people are hungry and interested for something new. I think a lot of people are pretty tired of the Solana trenches. As much as I love Solana, as much as I love the trenches, they're tired of like some 22-year-old kid who used to sell sneakers bundling 40 SOL of a coin at 10K and then dumping on their heads at fucking 70, 80K. And so the resurgence of NFTs, whether on Robinhood or not, just in general, I think shows like a shift in kind of what people are desiring and wanting. And the shift to Robinhood Chain in general is just natural. Like they'll do that if it's fucking Monad and there's no famous company involved or backing it, you know? I mean, Monad had good backing, but you know what I mean? It's not like Robinhood Chain. Like any degen will go gamble, but the fact that it's also stayed around for this long so far and has continued to show support for the major coins as they like reach low levels and then bounce kind of just shows that it's going to be a fun bull run. I don't think this thing's done.
Yeah, I like that. Now, for NFTs, I have been wanting Solana NFTs to come back. Do you think it's going to be Robinhood NFTs that make the big move?
I don't think it matters what chain, man, if I'm being honest. I think like probably ETH NFTs like won't be relevant. And I don't mean old NFTs. I mean like new mints, you know, the chain is just like too expensive to really be minting things. But I look at Ethereum as kind of like the main chain Ethereum, NFTs, Punks, Bored Apes, Meebits. That's like the legacy chain now, right? Like all those NFTs that launched their VFriends, like those are legacy NFTs. They're like the long-term NFTs that probably will do well over the next 10, 20, 50 years. In terms of Solana versus Robinhood, I don't think it really matters. I think like what matters for people is, are they making the returns that they want to be making on the mint? You know, like people forget that in 2021, 2022, Solana NFTs were the trenches. Yeah. You would go in, you would find a brand new mint, you'd mint fucking 50 of them or 100 of them, and you'd blast listings all fucking day or all week as the floor went 5x, 10x, 20x, etc. It's the same exact dynamic as the trenches. The only thing that really changed was the fact that like they stopped doing crazy numbers and they stopped going up. And so people were like, we don't like NFTs. We like trenches because money goes up in trenches and they don't in NFTs. And so with Stonk Brokers kind of breaking through that almost like 5-year haze of people hating NFTs for some like random reason, just because they went down, just like every other fucking asset does in crypto. Like it took 5 years to get the haze off, but now that the haze is off, Stonk Brokers broke that, and they're like, I think people are gonna like, they're flooding towards mints on Robinhood. I think it could happen again on Solana as well. I think a lot of Solana people kind of still have a bitter taste in their mouth more than EVM chain people from NFTs, because man, we really dragged on NFT season way too long with OK Bears and all this other shit that like was 6 months past the top, you know?
Yeah, that pivot was brutal. I mean, the end of NFT season moving into the trenches was not a pretty sight if you're around.
But OK Bears did let us go out with a bang, though. Give us that like final blow off top exit.
Right, dude. Oh my god, I fucking was selling bears at 100 or 100 SOL, 150 SOL. I was like, what's going on here? This is crazy. But people forget about that. They forget that you can mint something for $5 and sell it for 500 or even 5,000 or even 50,000 sometimes in very short periods of time. And once that like extreme nature comes back to minting, which it already kind of is on Robinhood, I don't see why it wouldn't follow to Solana and probably other chains too. It's going to probably, I think it could be fun to bring NFTs back, to be honest.
Bring them back. Bring them back. You heard it from here first. Fxnction, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. If people want to learn more about you, want to learn more about Robinhood or the birds, where can they go?
Just head over my Twitter, at Fxnction on Twitter with an X. And then hoodstaysup.com is where our hangout is. If you want to come hang out, we got like a whole digital trenching room essentially where we're all voice chatting and trenching together and like throwing coins out. And we got Tetris in there too, so we're like playing Tetris and chess and all this other shit while we wait for our coins to do something. It's fun.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll be following along. We'll be checking out these birds, and appreciate all your commentary here. It's fantastic.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh man, just the best.
I love trips down Solana memory lane. I love looking back at NFT days. I love talking about the OK Bears mint. I remember sitting there like finger on the mouse ready to absolutely click it and didn't get any, obviously. And then watching them rip to 100, 200 SOL in a matter of days. It was different times.
It was different times. People forget about that, right? Like I forget what the mint was on that. It was like 5 SOL, 10 SOL, and it just 10x like right out of the gates. It's insane times.
The other thing I loved about that period was like trading whitelist tokens on famous Fox marketplace. Like it was just a completely different world. And then meme coins came and removed a lot of those barriers, and obviously made it easier for a lot of people, but it kind of took away that magic of looking at the art and seeing the mint. And I don't know, it was a different time. Yeah, I still believe it was more fun. I still believe NFTs were more fun than meme coins, but that's probably
me too. I think there was like a little bit of friction involved in it, that you had to kind of work for it a little bit more, where they ended up turning NFTs into basically meme coins, right? Like I feel like Tensor came in and it was so easy to trade everything. You could just market dump all of your NFTs if you really wanted to. Things got a little too easy. The friction was gone. So it seems like, I don't know, it seems like these Robinhood NFTs they're interesting, right? It kind of has like the old feel, right? I think you have to go to OpenSea to buy them. And yeah, it's interesting. I feel like he also kind of said, long soul, but look at Robinhood and he'd long that as well if he could. So there's multiple.
Yeah, his soul pitch was not the most convincing soul pitch I've heard, but look, we'll analyze it in any case. Thomas, do you want to bring up JTX and we can have a quick look at some of these trades that were pitched to us today? Obviously, yes. White Whale didn't pitch us a tick per se, but he did give us some advice, and that advice was don't be in a rush to trade the market. Obviously, we've got a big green candle here today, so I'm feeling a bit of FOMO. Would you agree with that? Would you say that you wanted to jump straight in and join this party right now, or are you eager to sit on the fence for a wee bit longer? What's your immediate gut reaction to this?
I mean, I don't really know. I haven't really been like keeping track of the market, so I don't know why everything is pumping today. But I mean, I see a candle like this, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. We have SOL. I think we have SOL in our portfolios, but it seems like I wish I had more at this point, right?
Yeah, well, I feel like everything is up in the green. It's been a good day. I guess it's coming off the back of those SEC regulation announcements. I know that it's been a bit of back and forth between the SEC. Clarity was falling apart, so they just took it on their own hands to make something of themselves. A lot of those rules have now been published or at least put forward. They haven't been kind of signed into the administration yet, but I think the markets are reacting to that specifically. Using White Whale's advice, is there any of your current holdings in that portfolio there that you'd be interested in re-adding to or selling or kind of moving around some of those allocations?
Yeah, let's see. I don't know. I'm pretty comfortable with my bags right now. I know that's probably not the ideal thing to say, but I mean, even Bonk is catching a bid right now, so I'm pretty happy with my bags. What about you?
I almost want to add to Hood here because I feel like the Robinhood Chain is getting some escape velocity. I feel like if retail season comes back to crypto, I think Hood will be a beneficiary of that because a lot more people trade on Robinhood than they do on centralized exchanges and things of that nature. So if we do get the bull run back, Robinhood probably moves. But again, I don't know if I'm racing to pour money back into this on the top of this candle. Maybe the smart thing to do is to wait and wait for the dust to settle a bit and see. But what are you thinking about Fxnction's other calls? Are you saying long Sol here?
It's like I wouldn't want a long Sol right after it ripped 6.8% or whatever it is on the day. So I don't want to buy right now. But I mean, Sol is looking good. We've been talking about how good Sol's looking for a while now, and to see it kind of finally spark up. I mean, if these SEC guidelines are passed and it's essentially like a clarity light, there's like we get guidelines, I think a lot of it's really bullish for Sol, right? Isn't a lot of it have to do with like tokenization and I don't know, like stable coins and a few other things that are actually like quite bullish for Solana, right?
I think a lot of it is also around capital formation on chain. So I think there's some rules around if you don't raise more than 5 million, you don't have to declare for certain things. So we will need to dive into that with a bit more detail. I suspect that our live stream on Friday, where we digest all the news of the week, will be the best time to do that. But at the moment, look, coins are happy, markets are happy, everything is green. It's an encouraging sign. We can, however, hop over to perp.so and take a look at the guest community submissions. Shall we head over there first?
Yeah, and it wasn't quite loading for me this morning, so I'm going to refresh and see how this goes.
We do have the community submissions; those are loaded, and we are able to act on those. So
yeah, so I can pull those up, and let me share this. Here we go. All right, you want me to go through these?
I can go. So top of the list, we've got at Triggs81 pitching a bid on Sol at $65 limit order on Sol. He says the DATs were a form of significant leverage entering crypto and basically all executed at near the top. Quite a few of them are trading under NAV now and thus would get acquired by DAT companies that trade above NAV and or spun down entirely as the incentive to keep them running just isn't there. This has slowly started to happen, and once we have the majority of them gone, this will be the last leverage in the crypto system. That will be time to buy up majors in size again. First of all, this is a long Sol, but starting at 65. Do you think that given the move today, this has been invalidated? Or do you think that 65 is still in play at some point?
I mean, it doesn't really look like it's going to be. That would be a pretty big drop from here, right? 65 would be all the way down here. I don't know. I mean, if it hits there, it's for sure would be a buy, right? But I don't think we get that dip again, right? I know that some of the DATs they started buying the dip as well, right? So they've been adding to their bags, and yeah, I don't know where I'd necessarily want to enter on this, but it seems like it does not want to go lower than that. Like I would put maybe a limit order down towards here, towards like 72-ish, but I don't even know if we get that.
That's still a 10% pullback. That can happen over a period of days, but I don't know if we're going to snap back there anytime soon. I'm going to reject this trade from Triggs just in the case that I'm not sure we go back 65. I think if we do, then obviously that's a great entry. I think I've actually got some very low limit orders set around $42 that Simon gave us on the first episode of this show. It's looking less likely that we go there with more and more time that happens, but who knows? The market does mysterious things. Next on the list, we've got Kimosabe, who says OR generates roughly 10% of Pump's buybacks at just 1.3% of its FTV, 7.5 times the buybacks per dollar evaluation. My unrefined bag has compounded over 60% in around 18 months. At $57 below my $75 average entry, I'm still up roughly 22% during the current dip because accumulate OR. the monetary L2 of Solana go burr. We've already got ore in our portfolios. We've also got a second ore pitch here from Gum says, animal spirits coming back on chain will bring attention to Sol again. This will most likely translate into a resurgence of ore. So we've got 2 ore pitches on here. Obviously, you and I both like ore. We've already got ore in the portfolio. Would you add more at these levels?
I mean, it is pretty low. I feel like it does usually tend to run when Solana runs, right? And I don't think it's actually caught a bid here yet. Let's see. I can pull it up.
I'm seeing a little bit. I'm seeing plus 6% on Sol and plus 6.23% on my staked ore in the portfolio. So almost hand in hand, the move.
Yeah, it really is. This leads me to kind of question. So I don't think I'm going to add here. I do like ore, and I think that it's got a great place in the ecosystem. But I feel like the idea of Sol pumping, so buy this other coin, is such a weird mentality, right? Like the beta to Sol. Like I feel like a lot of people are doing that with pump right now, right? You want to buy the casino. People used to buy Solana, and now you want to buy the casino. You buy the pump token. So I don't know if I necessarily like buying the other token. Like if you're bullish on Solana, just buy Solana, right? I think that's what it kind of comes down to for me. And I think we're seeing those other headwinds on Solana where we're going to be burning more Solana with more intense transactions. The inflation rate's going to be coming down. So I think it has those headwinds going for it too. Where I tend to just want to own the actual asset that I'm bullish on, I guess.
Yep, that makes sense. Although at the same time, if you talk about these tokenomics changes that are going to make Sol go up, if ore continues to move hand in hand with Sol, surely ore captures some of that value accrual as well, indirectly, of course. And the other thing is that ore is in the middle of its V3 rollout. That's heading towards the magnum opus, the crescendo of whatever they've got playing into. So I could see a decent bid coming in here for ore. So I'm actually going to go add a tiny bit more to my ore bag here. I'm buying staked ore because I want to get that staking yield, but I'm going to add another 5% of the portfolio into staked ore, and hopefully the momentum that we're generating from this move up will carry through, and we'll get a nice little 5-10% bump on that.
I like it. I'm probably going to regret not buying it here. But I mean, basically my portfolio is almost maxed out as far as like stables are, right? So in order for me to buy anything now, I would basically have to sell something else. And I'm pretty comfortable with where the rest of my portfolio is. So not to be boring, but I don't necessarily want to take that trade right now, right? I already own an ore in this portfolio, right?
Yep, that's a solid argument. There is one final community pitch here from DeFido, who's saying burn it to 40%, bidding Nero here. He's saying in at 0.0027. Look, old meme coin. I don't know if Nero's got enough motion. I appreciate the pitch, DeFido. I really do. I've already got Ket in my portfolio. I think I'm well enough allocated. You've got Bonk. Maybe you feel the same way. I'm going to reject this pitch for Nero here, Thomas.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the Nero coin at all. Wait, how is your Ket doing? Did Ket end up coming back up?
Let's have a look. Ket, it's up around 0.0046. We're up 3.77% on the 24-hour. I tell you what, Thomas, I quite like Ket here. Ket has bounced off this bottom around that 3 mil market cap. I think a slow bottom is forming. We're seeing a lot of motion on Twitter for Ket. It was reposted by the Solana account. Maybe there's some kind of connection there. Obviously, I don't know anything, but I'm pretty happy to add another 2.5% into my Ket position, which is already down a wee bit. So I'm just going to try and bring that average level down. And maybe there's going to be a nice juicy exit here that can come in the future. So I've added 2.5% to my Ket bag there as well.
Ah, man. I feel underexposed to Ket now because I've been seeing them on Twitter too. And they absolutely have been crushing it. I think I sold mine into Zcash.
Well, look, that ended up being a pretty good trade, I think. Zcash is now up quite handsomely. And touching on Zcash, obviously this has been one of the best performing coins in both of our portfolios. Do you have an exit planned here? Obviously, we're up 8% on the day in Zcash. Do you think it's worth actually trimming a little bit here, or do you want to just let that one ride as high as it can?
So I am going to let this one ride. let's see. Let's pull up a higher time frame here. Let's pull up a day and make this chart a little bit bigger. Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument for trimming some of it, right? Especially it is 25% of my portfolio here. However, I mean, I feel like Zcash just got through like the most gnarly bug that has ever existed in crypto, and it's coming out of it like very, very well. I feel like I'm just kind of starting to see more momentum on the timeline regarding it, right? Like Ironwood is the new pool is launched. They proved that there was no inflation bug that could mint infinite Zcash in their privacy pool. I feel like there's just a lot of headwinds right now for Zcash, and I feel like the holders proved how that they can hold through anything, right? You know, there was a big dip, you know, right after that bug came out, but then it started holding above 400 very, very strong, and I don't see that coming down. So as far as exit strategy, I don't even really have one right now, but I probably would not sell any before new all-time highs.
Very bold. I like it. We love the dreamers here. And I agree as well. I think with midterms on the way, I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on crypto. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny on crypto wealth. And I think there's an argument here that a lot of people are going to be advocating for privacy protocols. They're going to be wanting to shift a lot of their capital into places where it can't be reached by the long arm of the government. So yeah, I think Zcash is a pretty comfy hold at this point. What I might start doing is I might start moving a shifting stop loss just underneath as high as we're going, so
Smart.
that if we do get some kind of pullback, I'll be able to catch the gain there and hopefully re-enter lower. But you know, a lot of people have done this and they never get their re-entry, and they end up not catching the highs that come after that.
Yeah, and I feel like Zcash and OR are kind of a similar trade in a few different ways that I actually really like. So, Fxnction kind of mentioned how hard it is in the actual trenches, right? You know, most of the activity in crypto, and especially on Solana, has to do with meme coins, and people are getting rinsed on there, right? Like there is a lot of the trenches are tough, right? There are supreme extractors on there, and they are making a lot of money, and it's very hard for the average person to go on to FOMO, buy a coin, and make money. Like at the end of the day, like that is a pretty negative sum game, right? Where I think that Zcash and OR are both kind of the opposite of that, right? Like long-term thinkers, very opinionated. Zcash has some of like the most insane developers and like privacy-minded people in the world, right? Like these are very opinionated people that are going to be holding, and I like having a portion of my portfolio in Zcash because of that, right? It's like almost like a separate bag from what I think of, when I think of Solana and meme coins and pump, right? It's kind of the other where you don't need all that activity, right? There's no DeFi. You're not looking at the 5-minute charts. You're looking at how much Zcash is staked in the privacy pool, and is that number going up? Where it's kind of refreshing to have, some of your portfolio outside of what we look at every day, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. We like it long term. I would echo all that. Now, Thomas, we are just going to do a quick recap before we close the stream up for the day. Obviously, 2 incredible guests joining us. We had White Whale, whose biggest advice was find your superpower, figure out what it is that you're really good at, and then hammer that home and develop that skill. We had Fxnction coming on after to say that all the action is on Robinhood. Solana is a very difficult game, as you mentioned. I like the idea of buying the Hood stock as a proxy to this. I've already got some in my portfolio. I think that's going to continue to do well. Speaking now to the audience, if you have a ticker, a setup, a thesis worth defending, please head to perp.so and drop it on the community submissions. Otherwise, send an XDM to myself or Thomas Bahamas if you would like to join the show. The SolanaFloor account is also willing to accept messages there if you'd like to join us on future weeks of Trading Floor. Thomas, I'll see you next week at Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll see you in the order books.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Ben.